Sylvester and I were part of a different team when we fought Dr. Ito. This was before we joined the JSA.
You were part of another team?
Yeah, we called ourselves the 7 Soldiers of Victory.
There's Robin Hood and a knight. Wait, and there were 8 of you, Pat.
Yeah, we always argued about the name. Dr. Ito, he built a living weapon designed to eradicate New York. We destroyed it. The 7 Soldiers never got the credit that the Justice Society did, but we saved lives, cities, even the world once. I lost touch with all of them years ago. I wish I knew where they were.
Alright, what is going on guys, it's Tazz here, and welcome back to the channel. Now today I've got for you guys is another Stargirl video. I've wanted to discuss something that I've been thinking about honestly ever since the first appearance of this specific character, and now that we are pretty far into the season and have had some hints but not all of the answers quite yet, I thought it was the perfect time to make a theory/speculation video. So if you couldn't tell from the title already, the main topic of today's video is of course the mysterious Blue Valley High janitor, Janitor Justin, aka Sir Justin, aka the Shining Knight. So if you guys aren't caught up with Stargirl Season 1 quite yet, this is your spoiler warning, so fly away on the cosmic staff and come back once you're all caught up. But with that out of the way, let's talk about what we know so far about our good old buddy Janitor Justin, as well as where I think they will be taking the character going forward throughout the remainder of the season. Janitor Justin, a character that has sort of been looming in the background very briefly in certain episodes, with a few hints here and there as to his true purpose on the show. Many of us fans of the comics were pretty quick to pick up on the fact that, well, his name is Justin, and he had a Pegasus on his hat, which kind of piqued our interests and hinted at who this character could really be. If you were aware of the story of the 7 Soldiers of Victory, as Pat explained in this week's episode, then back when Janitor Justin saved Courtney from Shiv in episode 7, his identity was all but confirmed for us. As Pat explained, he, along with Starman, back when he was but the Star-Spangled Kid, were a part of an early superhero team known as the 7 Soldiers of Victory, made shockingly up of 8 members, maybe not the best name there. Anyway, in addition to the Star-Spangled Kid and Stripesy, we had members like Green Arrow and Speedy, the Vigilante, Crimson Avenger, Wing, and of course the Shining Knight. Right when this picture of the team was shown, the final piece of the puzzle fell right into place. If you guys are familiar with the comics, which honestly I was not before researching a bit prior to the start of the season, after a battle between the 7 soldiers and a villain called Nebula Man, the members of the team were displaced throughout time until they were eventually rescued by the Justice League and JSA. Thinking about this time displacement thing, maybe that's why Pat doesn't look any older now than he did in that picture. This man has seriously aged like a fine wine. I think I might have just stumbled onto something. The biggest mystery on the show is no longer who is Courtney's father, but rather how old is Pat Dugan? Like, no man can look like that for all those years. Does Pat have some secret superpower that we don't know about? But anyway, when they were rescued, Sir Justin, or the Shining Knight, had lost his memories and ended up going to work at Blue Valley High as a janitor. Now, who do we know that works as a janitor at Blue Valley High who just so happens to have a Pegasus on his hat and even his calendar, as well as a medieval sword in his supply closet, and also just so happens to be named Justin? Of course, this was probably pretty obvious to most of you guys who are familiar with these characters in the comics, but for those of us who Stargirl is their first real introduction to the JSA, the ISA, and the 7 Soldiers, I thought it would just be helpful to kind of lay everything out for you guys. But just saying that Janitor Justin is or was Sir Justin, aka the Shining Knight who worked alongside Pat and the 7 Soldiers, doesn't really explain his amnesia or the fact that he's starting to get his memories back. Again, touching on the episode where Justin saved Courtney from Shiv, once Pat ran in to get Courtney, he did recognize Pat as Stripesy. And of course, to even get to that point, Justin did have to have something triggered in his memories to go get his sword and end up going to do his hero thing to save Courtney from Shiv. And then fast forward to the most recent episode, and we have Janitor Justin cleaning up the halls of Blue Valley High, and then he gets a vision of his mop turning into the cosmic staff of all things. Kind of random to just have a weird vision of your mop looking like the cosmic staff, but my theory with all of this is that they are going with the amnesia story from the comics and whatever happened to the 7 soldiers, whether or not they were time displaced. Sir Justin ended up losing his memories of being the Shining Knight, but they are still kind of locked away subconsciously in his brain somewhere. And now that crazy things are starting to happen all around Blue Valley again, it's starting to bring back his memories of being the Shining Knight and of course working with Starman and Stripesy for a time. And who knows, maybe with Brainwave Jr. possibly joining the new JSA, he could potentially unlock those memories for Sir Justin. In case you were unaware, episode 11 is actually titled Shining Knight, so I would have to guess that we may get another teaser next week with episode 10, and then finally get some answers on Janitor Justin come his episode with episode 11. And who knows, maybe we'll get more backstory to fill in the cracks and answer more about the past of the JSA once Sir Justin's memories are potentially restored, like possibly how old Pat is, or who is Courtney's father. Probably not Starman, but who knows. What I do know, however, is that the mystery behind Janitor Justin and the Shining Knight has been one of my favorites this season so far, and I cannot wait to see what he can bring to the table for the last handful of episodes, where he will hopefully regain his memories and help out the JSA take on the Injustice Society. Shining Knight even supposedly has a rivalry with Dragon King in the comics as well, so it will be interesting to see if maybe Dr. Ito has something to do with Justin's current state of amnesia. So if you guys were confused at all about Janitor Justin, I hope this little explanation with a slight bit of theorizing gave you guys a bit of a better idea as to what he's all about. And as I mentioned, episode 11 seems to be the Shining Knight-centric episode since it's literally titled Shining Knight, so I'm sure we will get the rest of our questions answered, or at least most of them will be answered in that episode. But with that said, I've been really enjoying Stargirl thus far. This week's episode was another great one. Not only with the comic deep cut of the 7 Soldiers of Victory, but also with the ISA's plan moving along quite nicely, spearheaded by the evil yet shockingly polite Dragon King. Speaking of Dr. Ito, it does seem like with him locking Cindy up in his evil lair, he's either going to kind of brainwash her to follow along with his plans, or what I think would be very interesting to see is if she ends up turning on him by the end of the season. I think it would be really cool to see if the JSA is down there in the tunnels and they find Cindy locked up by Dragon King and maybe she ends up helping them out a bit to get back at her father. Maybe not a full redemption yet, but kind of plant the seeds that maybe she's not all bad and could end up being maybe a frenemy of the JSA. While I do love to see the rivalry between Cindy and Courtney, I wouldn't mind seeing Shiv as sort of a recurring anti-hero or something, and then possibly even a friend of the team at some point in the future. Really do love the character, so I hope she does stick around and doesn't turn too evil by being locked up by her father. Maybe there's some redemption for her out there somewhere. And speaking of redemption, I feel like with Brainwave Jr., he will eventually end up joining up with the JSA as well, even though at the moment they are trying to make us think that he is no better than his father. While on the side of Cameron and his father, I think they are also potentially misdirecting us. Jordan, aka Icicle, is cold and calculated, yet almost seems to trick you into thinking that he's not so bad of a dude. That is until he killed Pat's best friend and seemingly is trying to steal his wife as well. Yeah, that's happening on this show, probably. Anyway, the big indication that you are the big bad guy is of course grabbing a hot dish without potholders. That is the big evil giveaway. On the other hand, his son Cameron appears to have the same powers as his father without any signs that he could go down the same ISA path. What if by the end of the season, Icicle is defeated or maybe even killed, Cameron finds out somehow and knows that Courtney was involved, and this maybe turns him to the dark side, and then we have Icicle Jr. making his own ISA for Season 2. Just a theory, but certainly some food for thought. Anyway, come the end of this most recent episode, after the very tense dinner scene with Icicle, we finally have Barbara walk down to the basement to find Courtney and Pat there with the cosmic staff, and based off of the trailer for the next episode, she doesn't seem too pleased about it. But I'm sure it will all work out fine, especially when they drop the bombshell that her boss is in fact a supervillain. With that said, really excited for next week's episode. It seems like a pretty big one, and I can't wait to see more from Courtney and the JSA, along with the ISA and even Janitor Justin, the Shining Knight. So I want to know your thoughts on everything we touched on down there in the comments below. What do you think about Janitor Justin, and what do you think caused his amnesia? Where do you think the allegiances will lie come the end of the season? Is Starman really Courtney's father? Probably not, but it seems to make her happy to flex it. And what are you guys most looking forward to in the last 4 episodes of the season? I want to know your thoughts on all of this down there in the comments below. But until next time, guys, it's been Tazz, and I'll see you guys in the next video.